So welcome to all of you. I see some people in the foyer. We have space downstairs if you'd like to join. I know there's many joining us downstairs, and so welcome to you as well, and to all those who are joining online. We began our Holy Triduum last night with the Mass of the Lord's Supper. Jesus hanging out with his closest friends. They're celebrating. There's food. There's a feast. We sang the Gloria for the first time since the start of Lent. And yet very quickly, things take a turn. And here we are on Good Friday, experiencing this liturgy, which will probably take a couple of hours. This extended time of intercession, a time to venerate the cross. And nestled in the middle of it is this passion narrative, taken from the Gospel of John, these final hours where Jesus was in agony, praying, aware of what was to come, betrayed, arrested, on trial, tortured, executed. And I think, it probably took us, 15 or 20 minutes to go through that reading of the Passion narrative, these painful events. And if I'm honest, I try to listen. There's moments I get distracted. I'm probably the only one. But I try to refocus again, continue with this passion. As many as 20 minutes in a liturgy that lasts 2 hours. And I want to summarize it in 2 words. God suffered. God suffered. God suffered and God died. Now, that latter part, Father Isaac actually gave that homily a few weeks ago. Did God die? And so I couldn't possibly improve upon anything that he said. And so you can watch it on YouTube. It was on March 23rd. But today I want to focus on this theme of suffering, this universal human experience. It doesn't matter how healthy you are. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are. It doesn't matter how much education you have, how holy you are, or how holy you think you are. Everybody suffers. Everyone suffers. It's universal. And by the way, just to be clear as we begin, like if we were to line up from one end to the other, those who suffer the most to those who suffer the least, I would be down at the far end of the least. I know that for sure. And yet, I think as a priest, I get a little bit of a window into some of your suffering. Just a few days ago, I was at the hospital visiting a couple of different parishioners who are in there, good spirits, and yet their physical bodies are declining. That's nothing to say of all the many people who carry these hidden wounds of a struggle with their mental health. I know many married couples suffer because of infertility. I know many other couples who suffer because they have children. But in all seriousness, there's the suffering for parents, 24/7 caring for these little ones who they get sick, and all of the added burden. They grow up. They start to make poor decisions, and you can't do anything to stop that. Some rebel. Some even choose to distance themselves from their parents. Suffering in so many relationships. Financial suffering is of a totally different category, but no less real. I think of the hundreds of people, even in our parish, who are newer to Canada, who are trying to get established, but living in uncertainty about the future. The number of people who are trying to get status so they can work, or who are living in fear that they'll not get their PR and get sent back to their home country. The number who come up to us seeking prayer. I know several who were professionals, they had financial security in their home countries, and yet they had to give it all up, be stripped, and start with a very humble beginning here. I could give example after example of suffering. We all suffer. And the problem is that suffering can have this power over us. It can turn us inward. We can start to fixate on this one thing, this one situation, this one person perhaps. It can get us down, lead to self-pity. It can occupy our thoughts, completely distract us. We can lose our peace. And here's the key. God suffered. God suffered. Jesus, who is God, literally suffered in every human way imaginable. He suffered for us. He is suffering with us. And I think we can learn a Christian way of suffering from his example. Now, this is by no means a comprehensive address of the topic, but just a quick beginning, scratching the surface. 3 things I want to offer you in the face of suffering, things that we can do in the face of suffering. The first is to lead with silence. I don't know about you, but when I suffer, I want the whole world to know, right? I just recently I was on a flight on with this discount airline. We were delayed about 30 or 40 minutes, which is, I'm very used to it now, sitting at the back of the plane in this cramped little seat. There was a mild amount of turbulence on the flight as I was trying to drink my orange juice and eat salted almonds. And what did I do? Being part of that elite percentage of people who get to travel by airplane, you know what I did? I complained. Right? I told everybody about it. I told my family, I told my friends. Now I'm telling you, 1,000 more people know about how I've been hard done by this situation. Do you know how much Jesus complained when he was being tortured to death? Listen to this prophecy from Isaiah, which Jesus fulfilled. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. He led with silence. He didn't put the focus on himself. He didn't broadcast his woes to the world. Why? Because Jesus knew that his Father was with him. Even in the suffering, he wasn't alone. I think another angle on this lead with silence is when we encounter another who is suffering. Whenever someone comes to me to share something heavy, you know what I do? I offer unsolicited advice. And inevitably they tell me, thanks, Father, I feel so much better now. That's not true. That is not true. Before we complain, before we jump to counseling, let's lead with silence. I think if we can stay silent long enough, it might be possible for us, for others, to actually hear the voice of God in the midst of suffering. The second, in the face of suffering, to become softened, to become tender-hearted. In the midst of trials, it's so easy for us to be hardened, to become callous, to get angry and bitter, resentful, hardened by what's happening. By the way, I am preaching to myself on this one, in case it's not obvious. I struggle with this. Just think about Jesus. As he suffered, what was the state of his heart? It was soft. It was tender. Like he's hanging on the cross and he sees his mom. He sees this youngest of the disciples who is really beloved to him, really special. And what does he say? He isn't like, I'd like to tell you about all the injustices of this whole thing. I shouldn't be up here right now. This isn't fair. What does he do? He says, woman, here is your son. And to John, here is your mother. You guys, take care of each other. You're going to need each other. That was his focus. Or another example, how hard was his heart towards the soldiers who were in the very act of executing him? Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. It's so easy to forgive, to talk about forgiveness, until you actually have to forgive someone who has hurt you. You know, looking at our own situations, I don't believe that God wants us to suffer. I certainly don't believe that suffering is God's way of punishing us, like he's some kind of vindictive God who gets a kick out of it. But I do believe that God can bring good out of anything. And one of the potential goods of suffering is that it can tenderize our hearts. It can tenderize our hearts. It can increase our compassion and our empathy. You know, the other day I met this woman, and she's a mom. She has a few kids. One of her daughters has Down syndrome. Her daughter's about 30 years old now. This mom has been impacted every single day from the moment she got pregnant by this reality. And yet, she's full of joy, beautiful, gentle, kind-hearted. And I believe that somehow through the trials, the unexpected, God has softened her heart. And he can do that for any of us. We can allow ourselves to be softened. And the third, in the face of suffering, is to surrender. A friend once said to me that when we're going through trials, we tend to do one of four things, sometimes all four. We want to fix it. If we can't fix it, we want to control it. If we can't do that, we want to manage it, at least minimize the negative impact. And if we can't do that, at the very least, we want to understand. Am I the only one? Like, fix, control, manage, understand? We were here last night. One of the songs that the band was playing was called New Wine. And there's this line that hit me. It said, when I trust you, I don't need to understand. When I trust you, God, I don't need to understand. And, 700 people in this church belting it out, myself included. And it's like when I'm so good. I'm so good at talking good talk, singing a good lyric. But when I'm suffering, my default, I want to fix, control, manage, at the very least, understand why the heck is this happening? When I trust you, that's the disposition of surrender. I don't need to understand. Jesus, fully human, fully God, he could have powered up at any moment throughout his passion. He could have reversed the outcome, but he didn't. He surrendered. Jesus didn't turn inwards on himself, make it about him, but he trusted in his Father. And I love this beautiful line. As he's hanging on the cross towards the end, Jesus says this to his Abba, his dad. Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. Surrender. In the face of suffering, this is what Jesus did. He led with silence. He allowed the suffering to soften him, and he surrendered. Now, a little bit later in this service, we're going to have a chance to venerate the cross. And I want you to just picture it. There's going to be this wood of a cross. Jesus has suffered. He's died. He's been taken down from the cross. All that's left is the wood. these planks that have come from a dead tree, soaked in his sweat and his blood, this instrument of torture. And I don't want you to just come up because everybody else is doing it. Really to reflect. Ask yourself the question, what's your greatest suffering right now? Shouldn't take you long for that to come to mind, but what is it? Before we get to this moment, there'll be a few moments of silence in the liturgy. What is your greatest suffering right now? Is it your family, a relationship, work? Maybe something interior or secret that hardly anyone knows about. Maybe it's self-inflicted. Maybe it's sin. Built into sin is suffering often. Often suffering accompanies it. I certainly can relate to that one. But rather than turn inwards and fixating on the sorrow and self-pity, bring it to the cross. Bring it up with you as you venerate the cross. You are not alone. Even if there isn't another human being on this planet who knows what you are going through, know this: God suffered. God suffered. And I think when that really clicks for us, it can be such a source of comfort. It can put everything into perspective because his suffering is so much greater than ours. And we can realize that it's through his suffering that he is making a difference. Now I want to offer you just a final prayer, a little line you might have heard of from the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, but it could be something you carry with you as you approach to venerate today. Again, the focus is not on us, but on him and what he did. For the sake of his sorrowful passion, have mercy on us and on the whole world. And I make it personal. For the sake of your sorrowful passion, have mercy on me and on the whole world.